to Lucy as well, who's joining us, and then we'll say morning as everyone else comes in. Morning, Jim. And we will then we'll say morning. Then we'll ask Andy to sort out the sound that's coming through. You need to move. So morning as everyone else comes in. Morning, Jim. We will then.
You've got Jim James saying, great to see you in the UK, Brian.
Yeah, if you can turn the heating on, please.
Yeah, well,
Sun lamp. And reduce the price of wine.
Bring down the price of wine.
Bring down the price of wine. I'm not used to
just because you normally buy it in plastic bottles out of the Italian supermarket.
That sounds like a signature that we should be sending into the government.
Reduce the price of wine. Yeah. I think it makes sense. I'm not used to spending more than €2 on a bottle of wine.
I know. Right. Maybe that's just a good point. It's ridiculous here.
Let's get this recording. Right. And we'll say good morning and welcome to the Progress Shed, and welcome to East West PR who've joined us as well. And this morning we've got a pretty cool session. So some of you might have heard Brian talking before on micro expressions and the use of body language, which is a passion of his and something he's very qualified on. What you might not realise is that he actually completed on his sale of his business on Friday.
Mm-hmm.
And therefore actually did you see the little grin there? I love the little grin. So therefore actually what Brian managed to achieve through the course of lockdown was to actually find a buyer, structure his business for the sale, get all the communications built, and in addition to that, he wasn't even based in the UK. He was based in Italy, living on Lake Garda, where the weather is apparently somewhat kinder to him than it is here.
A lot.
The wine is somewhat cheaper. The scenery is apparently gorgeous, and therefore we've now dragged him back to the UK and asked him to come in and really talk us through some of his experiences and so on, because coming through a journey like that, it's really only the hindsight that lets you look back at what you've put in place and the thought patterns and the actual actions that have led to a successful deal being struck. And that's what we'd like to explore with you a little bit today.
Sure.
So, well, let's start with your childhood now. That's a bit too far back. So can you just give us a brief background? So life before your last business.
Sure. So I was in financial planning for best part of 15 years. Prior to that was some management consultancy, but it's been many and varied over the years. Anything from running a mountain bike shop for 6 or 7 years, time in the army and in the police. So a very varied background. So spending 15 years in financial planning felt like after 2 years it was time to go and do something else. But I'd actually found something I enjoyed doing and got reasonably well paid for as well. And also, as you know, once you start working for yourself, you become quite unemployable because you want to do your own thing. So
I love that. Become quite unemployable. Yeah. Very
unemployable. Very unemployable.
So that's brilliant. So so your background, a huge variety of experience. Then you came into the financial services 15 years ago because you woke up one day and went, I want to be a financial planner.
Yes, exactly. No, it wasn't that at all, actually, I'm afraid. My partner at the time, now my wife, had recently just bought a financial advisor. She'd worked her way up from being a part-time administrator in 1994, I think it was, and eventually bought the business in 2005. And then we met on Christmas Eve 2005. and I was kicking around looking for things to do, and then decided to be a mortgage advisor just before the double dip recession hit.
Nice timing.
Brilliant timing. So I knew it really difficult. And then our little girl Maddie, who's now 13, she turned up, which meant it was a little bit challenging to have me on one desk, my wife Lisa on another desk, and little Maddie in the corner. It wasn't very conducive for client meetings. So I had to then qualify as a financial advisor very quickly, take on Lisa's clients, and so she could look after Madeline and bring her up. And then it went on from there, and we developed the business. And most recently, over the last, I suppose, 5 years, we've really scaled the business up.
Okay. And at what point, what changed? Because like you developed a lifestyle business.
Yeah.
So that meant that Lisa could do some work presumably and look after Maddie and have the family side of things.
Yeah.
You were working, being a good financial advisor, you can earn a decent living. So what changed, what switched to mean that you wanted to build the business and take it to that next step?
Well, what I realized was that in any place of employment, there are the technicians, and then there are business operators. And the technicians always have their earnings capped, and you know, whether it's hourly rates or fees or what have you, until you own or run a business and you operate it as if you're a business owner, you're always capping on what your potential is. And over the course of time, I developed it. So I was spending more time, as you know, working on the business than working in the business, which then enabled me.
No, that coffee, yeah, please. Thank you.
That enabled us to 2 years ago emigrate to Italy because I had a great team here in the UK.
Excellent. And that let you move to Italy, have that lifestyle, move that forward, and that's kind of really quite exciting. And at what point did you determine, actually, rather than building the business to give you the lifestyle, even with the team, that it was actually a case of building to what we've generally referred to as being the finished business side of things? So that's an action coach definition of being a commercial profitable enterprise that works without you. Yeah. Because ultimately, the only reason you've been able to sell is because the business, you're not, well, whilst you're the advisor, you can be substituted out of the business as a whole. Yeah. So what changed or what was it that led to that?
I think really what it was two things. Number one, just before we left for Italy, we were approached by another financial advice firm who said, look, we're interested in buying you. And I hadn't really actually given it much thought. I thought my original consideration was, plan, if you like, was to build. And then we went to Italy, literally the week after we'd had that first expression of interest in that year. And I decided to think about that long and hard. I either had a choice to build to grow or build to sell. And that was a very clear message for me that I took some time to think about. And I decided then over the course of that time that I wanted to build to sell that would provide a secure future for our clients. And I mean that in the most sincerest way, because we look after tens of millions of pounds of money, but more importantly than that, we look after 150 families, client households, and they rely upon us to make sure that they don't run out of money, they can enjoy their lifestyle. So it's important to have that for them and for the staff. And that was why, for me then, it was important to say, do I build to grow or build to sell? And actually, I felt I've done at that point 13 years. I was starting to look for new challenges already. I thought, okay, I don't want to get to a point where I'm resenting work and flying back 1 week every month. We're starting to build that resentment a little bit. Although I love seeing my clients and team, that commute, although it sounds great, a week, 25% of my time away from my family every year was not going to be something that was long term. So at that point, we decided to build to sell.
And it was quite interesting because when we first met, it was very much a case of actually of putting in the mechanisms to take care of the clients, to take care of the team. And with you almost with that slightly guilty element of wanting to leave the business and move on and do other things.
Yeah.
So on a mindset side of things, what caused that? I suppose that guilt, because there was that guilt.
I think what it is, to be absolutely clear on this, Pete, was that we looked after these clients. Some of them joined us quite recently. Some of us have been with us for 5, 10, 15 years or more. And as we've seen from a lot of the messages that have come through from clients over the weekend, is they look on us as family. And I have my own personal goals, but I share their goals and their dreams, and I've been a massive part of that, and giving them guidance and advice and help and structure. To then say, okay, I'm going to hand you over to someone else is incredibly difficult. And I didn't think it would be as difficult as it was, but it's difficult from the point of view of saying, right, I'm going to trust this new firm with, I didn't know who it was going to be at that point. I'm going to try and find the best fit I can for you, so that if I bump into you in the pub, sorry, wine bar, then you can look me in the eye and say, not only was it a good idea, Brian, you should have done it ages ago.
Excellent. And I know we were joking as we were coming through this that actually, in many cases, that the end result has meant that you're passing over your clients and your team into an environment that presents them with great opportunities.
Yeah.
And that potentially they should be quite grateful to be seeing the back of you.
I know some of them are. I know categorically who would be quite glad to see the back of me, but I hope the vast majority will look on it as time well spent. And I've certainly enjoyed that. We've been involved in people starting up and finishing their businesses. We've been involved in the start of life and the end of life. And it's been a great honor to work with those clients, hundreds and hundreds over the last 15 years. But it got to a point for me was, I've worked on hundreds and hundreds of clients' financial plans. Mine is there too, and I need to leave you in a really, really good position, and that will enable me to continue with my financial life plan as well. So in hindsight, it was quite a stressful thing to do in many respects, but crikey, we've learned a lot about ourselves and our business and our clients.
Excellent. So, to all intents and purposes, the journey was that you kind of had the lifestyle business, then you grew it, and then you decided to get to that point of selling it. And the mindset there kind of went through that kind of life journey of children, and then actually beginning to get to that point of thinking about the future, which is probably where we started thinking about that structuring to sell.
Yeah.
And at that point, your mindset then had to come into getting rid of that guilt and recognizing actually it's about actually serving your clients. Because if you got to the point of resenting your business for all intents and purposes, you wouldn't have served them, and you'd have then been glad to be rid of it at whatever price.
Yeah.
As it was over the last couple of years, it's been structured deliberately to get the team working right, to get the clients' service levels right, to get the background structures right, the reputation right, which is well demonstrated on some of the awards you've won. So as you come through, if you're looking through the journey to the actual sale point, with those wonderful rose-tinted glasses that come with after the fact and after the successful outcome, could you just give us a blow-by-blow rundown of the last 2 years and the things that you've put in place, and why?
Sure. So being financial people, then we kind of know our numbers. But the key thing with this was knowing our numbers from the point of view of the business taking us on. It was very different to the numbers that we would normally use. And so the first bullet point I would look at on this is making sure you know your numbers from the point of view of the, let's call it the Dragon's Den approach, when you're going to be asked about all this stuff. So when we talk, for instance, to business brokers, they would say, okay, have you got your accounts for the last 3 years? And you could go, there you go, and they would go. Okay.
So actually doing that financial preparation,
Absolutely.
have the 3 years previous,
3 years previous.
the ongoing forecasts.
Yeah, exactly.
And I suppose actually, like no one's ever asked you to do a Dragon's Den pitch at all, ever.
No.
But actually having that information to hand and therefore prepping it as though you were going to do that pitch is probably the first point, because all that data is already within your business.
Exactly. That data needs to come together and it needs to be you need to have comparisons. So not just having audited accounts that need to be audited, last 3 years, but having on an Excel spreadsheet comparison showing and explaining the reasons for any differentials. Because when you go through the financial check, if you like, the audit that they will undoubtedly use, they will say, what about this? What about that? If you haven't thought about it or explained it, then you're going to come up short. So that's on the financial side, but equally, your data our data needed to show how the business worked. So if I give you an example, our average client age was 60.5, and they had an average funds under management of, let's say, for example, £300,000, and 80% were on one platform, 8% were on another, and 75% were in the BA postcode. And we could do this correlation between it. So someone could say, what does this business look like? And the reason that that's important for the financial sector is, if I'm coming to you and buying your business and the average age of your client is 60, that's great. But if the average age of your client is 80, the longevity of that business is drastically reduced. And it makes a real impact on the eventual purchase price that you might get.
And I suppose when you were getting all this data together, were you then deliberately doing anything to adjust the shape of the business?
Yeah, absolutely. So one of the things that we realized actually pre-sale was that one of the vulnerabilities of a financial advice business is that most are built on a percentage of clients' funds under management. So if you have £500,000 and the financial advisor will charge you 1%, which is £5,000. You can tell the numbers, can't you?
Did you run out of fingers?
Now that's great in growing markets, but what it causes us a number of conflicts. Number one, if you get, let's say, a global pandemic, which
But that's not very likely.
not very likely, that impacts stock shares and all the rest of it. No, never happened. And it goes down from 500,000 in value to 450,000 pounds in value. The client may not need access to those funds, but now my income has now reduced proportionately. So using the traditional model of financial advisors made it very difficult for us to budget, unless you were charging so much that it didn't matter. And so we needed to be able to accurately budget so we could build the business and invest in it. That was the first thing. And also, we didn't want to have conflicts of interest if we're saying to people, go and spend your money. So for instance, we had a client probably 2 months ago say, right, Brian, we spotted the ideal home. We're going to go and buy it. We need half of our money out of our investments. So we still charge the same fee, whereas all other financial advisors, their fees reduced by half. So I looked at this as a weakness within our business and just did that some years ago. So when it was ready to sell, I could say, this is the structure of the business, and this is the budget we work to, and we've got consistency in our income, which is quite a rare thing in financial advice.
Excellent. So that change of the pricing model was really to create the consistency.
Yeah.
And for want of a phrase, how much sexier does that make you as an acquisition?
Particularly during the pandemic, top dog.
Top dog.
Yeah.
Although a pandemic would obviously be massively unlikely. As if we could deal with something like that.
Yeah.
So step one, really getting those numbers and the forecasting and the evidence to back up, as well as making the tweaks to the business to make it a more stable platform.
Yeah.
Actually, that was step one. What was the next step in terms of
Sure.
progressing?
So the next step is then making it known to those who might be interested that you are interested in talks. So it might be through business brokers, it might be through other people you know, bearing in mind the confidentiality side of this, and that's important because as much as I wanted to share with my team and my clients what the plans were, what I didn't want to do was to rock the boat. Because if I said to the staff 2 years ago, guys, we've been approached by a business to buy us, and that business that approached us actually approached us twice over that time period, they would have just be saying, actually, if Brian's looking at selling, maybe this isn't the place for me. And then that would have made it less attractive from the eventual business that we sold. And equally, clients would be going, well, you know, if Brian's going to sell, we best just looking around. And it just would have rocked the boat. So we managed to keep it under wraps for the best part of 2 years. Because we just didn't know, you know, we could have been in a position where we may not have been able to sell.
And that was whilst exploring that view. What in terms of the team structure, because you've got a reasonable sized team and support team. What about the team? Right?
So it was important to me that we ticked 2 boxes, which were number 1, the clients were looked after, and number 2, we had the right opportunities for the team. Now, whether the team would actually take those opportunities is not up to me and not up to the acquiring firm. But some of the firms we talk to, for instance, would just say, okay, we're just going to take the clients and we're going to service them remotely. We're going to close the office, staff will find their own jobs, and it's literally an asset strip. That was a very short conversation. It's just not going to happen. And then there were other offers and deals that were put in front of us, and some were very, very attractive, but they were attractive for a reason. And the reason was usually that they'd be putting fees up quite significantly for our clients. That's how they would get their money back. And again, I wanted to have I knew it worked much better if it was as seamless and as smooth as possible with as little disruption for clients.
So therefore, coming into even looking for a buyer, you were very clear that actually the nature of the sale needed to be one that took care of your existing team and gave them the opportunities, and took care of your existing client base. Wasn't the typical asset strip.
No.
So how did you go through that? Was that a deliberate thought pattern in advance, or was that just simply something built around your own values? Or
so it was a deliberate thought in advance. Was the tick box, and that is part of our values. You know, we look after our, and I know it goes counter to some management advice where they say pay yourself first, and then sort everyone else out. I was always of the mind I pay my staff first, pay my suppliers second, and then I pay myself third. And if there's nothing left at the end, I need to adjust it. But that's the order in which we do it, which meant, you know, some years ago when we were just starting out, that sometimes we didn't get paid for months on end. So that was very, very challenging. But we were then in a position where we knew that those values had to carry through, because that's what our clients come to us for. You know, we worked on a 4-day week because it was a lifestyle business for the staff as well. Now, whether or not that would continue is another question, but it meant then that we kind of had to walk the walk. You know, we couldn't be doing one thing and then selling out to an asset stripper.
okay,
At all.
so structuring the numbers first, then making sure that I suppose the team was stable, getting in place those values. You then talk about making sure the clients were looked after.
Yeah.
But what does that look like?
So what we did was we compared how we work with our clients to how a prospective firm would work with our clients. And some of that we wouldn't know until we signed a non-disclosure agreement. And then we put them side by side to see how we looked after clients and how they looked after clients, and if there was where that Venn diagram was, because we're doing the same business, but we're going to do it in a slightly different way. And what we didn't want to do was have something that was so radically different that clients were almost having to think, is this really for me? What we wanted was something where they went, well, that makes sense. It's pretty much the same. There's always going to be things which are different. It would be unrealistic to expect that it would be identical, as we talked about some time ago. But where's that Venn diagram? And are those, by weighting those things right? So, for instance, one of the important aspects was that the company that's bought Jones Hill, called Prospective, they have an office in Marlborough. But what we agreed they would do is that they would retain the office in Bradford Navon, where 99% of our clients came to. Now, post COVID, then, online, Marlborough, Bradford Navy, home, it will vary. But we wanted to have a smooth transition between the two. So from the outset, we wanted it as close as possible, whilst understanding that there would be some differences for clients going forwards.
Okay, so some differences, but it's a change, it's that transition. You had these kind of core values around the way that your business operated that were deliberately built, and you had the core thought patterns around what a sale would need to look like, and it was documented out to say, well, actually, it's got to hit these criteria.
Yeah.
So if they don't hit that, does that mean that in terms of, because there have been a few offers on the table over the last couple of years.
Yeah, quite a few.
Does it actually mean that if they didn't reach those criteria, despite the financial values, if they weren't just an asset strip, which you said you absolutely wouldn't do, were you prepared to walk away?
Well, we kissed 29 frogs over the last however many years. And in particular, in the last 2 years, probably 10 or maybe 12 of those before we found the right one. And what I knew is that if we have the right input and the right systems and processes, we'll get the right output. And whereas there were deals on the table which would have remunerated us better, the whole package, it had to be fair for us, and it absolutely had to be fair for the acquiring firm, because we wouldn't want that buyer's remorse. We want them to look at, this is a good deal for everybody. Everyone's winning with this, the clients, the staff, the acquirers and the sellers. And if that deal all works together, where I walk away and think, yeah, we probably could have got something better, but you know what? The whole thing works for the people who are most important. If I know it works for the clients, and it works for the staff, I think it's a direct result of that. It will work for us. It just has to. And maybe that's a bit naive, but actually in reality, it did.
And I think it's quite interesting through our conversations, because actually at various points, there were sticking points.
Yeah.
And I would frequently just throw out that question of, well, if this doesn't come through, can you live with that?
Yeah.
And I think with this, certainly this final deal, the whole way through, the answer was, well, it's not a deal breaker.
No.
It's still a win for me.
Yeah.
And yet at various points that it was actually, well, no, I can't live with that.
Yeah.
And therefore, hence, a couple of the deals did fall down.
It certainly did. Yeah.
How do you deal with, I suppose, it's that element of resilience to, I suppose, make that decision that actually the time is right for me to look at moving on with my life and to do something different. I'm going to kiss goodbye to the whole of this business. I'm going to look to secure the financial reward. I'm then going to feel guilty the whole way through about the size of that financial reward, despite the fact that I had years of not getting paid and years of struggle and giving opportunities to everyone else. Like we've covered a lot of those areas. But actually pushing through, keeping that resilience to say, you know what, we've got through to the 11th hour and the deal on the table, there's a big sum of money there, but actually I'm not prepared to make those concessions, and therefore I'm going to allow this whole deal to fall down, despite the fact I've got that on that 2 inches from gold, to slightly adjust the title of the book. So I'm 2 inches from gold, but I'm prepared to actually let that go, even though I'm that close to it, because actually there's probably a better bit of gold over there. It might not even be as big over there. How do you keep that resilience in your own head to keep going and not to actually give in to or I suppose to stand by your values?
Yeah. The first part really to that is once you've made an emotional decision to move, whether it's in any form of relationship, then it's probably time to go, whilst you're still on and up. Because I think if you delay it and delay it and delay it, we've all been in, whether it's personal or business relationships, where we've just carried on, and actually it then becomes a drag and a drain. So I'd made that emotional decision to move, whilst keeping the forefront of my mind to do the very best for clients and staff. How you develop that resilience, I suppose, for me, having spent previously years in sales, my mentality is I'm looking for people to say no. I'm looking for people to say no to. And eventually there'll be someone who will say yes and who I will say yes to. So I'm not so focused on going, where's this person? I'm just saying, right, I've got 50 people to see. 49 of those are going to be wrong. So bring on the 49. And then that develops the resilience.
And what was your default fallback position?
We keep doing what we do.
Because it was, from my side working with you, it was quite interesting because actually we were structuring to sell and we were very prepared to sell at the same time.
Yes.
What happened to that foot on the gas in relation to continue to develop and push the business forward?
It stayed on the gas.
Stayed on the gas the whole way through.
Absolutely.
How important was that to making sure that your mindset and your business actually, if anything, appreciated in value through the course of the...
Well, it was interesting because we were always at capacity, always at, in terms of dealing with our clients, working with new clients, and right up until the final week, new client leads coming in, we jump on it, we deal with it, in exactly the same way, no change, because this deal could fall over at the 11th hour. It absolutely could. And as my dad would say, the deal, what was it he said to me the other day? The deal's not done until the money is in the bank account of your choosing. And I was very aware of that we needed to keep on pushing, because as soon as we let off, then everyone stops rowing as hard.
So as the actual business, if we think about some of our sessions, we were talking about the sale point. We're also regularly talking about marketing. When was your last marketing campaign?
We were just about to launch one. Literally, we've done everything. We've done the website, we've done the collateral, we've identified the clients, everything. And I'd spent a couple of grand on just doing that. And we then had exchange. I had Friday was either launch the marketing or exchange. So I waited for it, and exchange came through, and I called the marketing chap, Phil Bray, and said, Phil, marketing's all off because we've exchanged. So now we can't do any marketing because it's because of the type of the now I know that we are selling, then it would be wrong of me to now take on new clients at that particular point, just to say, oh, by the way, but right up until that point, we're acquiring new clients. Absolutely.
Excellent. And I suppose what makes your sale massively more impressive is the fact that actually a deal had fallen apart at the back end of February. And there were no new buyers on the table as we came into the beginning of March. So the whole of this acquisition has been negotiated, presented, formatted, done, firstly through the middle of lockdown. And secondly, with you being stuck in Italy, although do remember, if you don't do your stuff, then you have to go for a swim in Lake Garda.
Of course, yes,
which I do have photographic evidence thereof.
So that was my, for anyone who doesn't know, that was my punishment, self-induced. I didn't say what I was going to do. I had to go and swim in Lake Garda. And trust me, in February, March, that's not something you readily do.
It was great. Like Brian actually started one of our sessions by holding up his camera with a video of him running down the stony beach and jumping into the water. He claimed he was in there for 3 laps of the lake. I think it was closer to 3 seconds, just enough to prove he'd done it.
It was cold.
But to be fair, he always did his stuff after that.
So not going to do that again. I don't mind doing it in June or July or August, but not February or March.
Excellent. So I suppose doing the deal remotely is without even having access to the office, because I think from the beginning, or you were locked down from the beginning or first week of March, wasn't it?
Well, my last visit to the UK was January. And we didn't come back until June.
Because you were supposed to have been coming back for the beginning of March.
That's right.
And you obviously didn't make that.
No.
And
Ryanair cancelled all our flights, obviously.
And therefore, what were the deliberate things that let you, not the challenges, because actually the challenges are fairly obvious of lockdown. We've all been through it. doing things remotely, it's always going to be challenging. In fact, it could almost have been a benefit, lockdown, because everyone suddenly switched to being online and phones and so on. So what were the steps that actually deliberately help you to make sure that you were able to get this deal to go through, whether it was in lockdown or not?
I think the one key step for this was momentum. Keeping that momentum going, which is one of the reasons that that I started working with you, because I knew that momentum and accountability was something which I did very, very well having. And if I didn't have it, I never did quite as well as I might otherwise want to. And that accountability to colleagues or peers or what have you, and almost a public accountability, if that makes sense, made life for me harder and easier at the same time, because I knew I've got this meeting with Pete on Friday, jeepers, I've got to do this, right? And that just made sure that everything I needed to do for the business sale or for business continuity was much more likely to happen. Truth is, it didn't always happen, but it was much more likely to happen, which then made, because I'm a big diary person, you know, that doesn't mean I carry a big diary. It just means I don't need to explain that. And you know, and the kids saw me this morning, little red notebook, write down the things I have to do. Because my memory isn't great, I write it all down. But then I have the accountability, tick, done that, tick, done that. I'm one of those crazy people who realizes they've just done something, writes it down on the to-do list, and immediately ticks it off. You know, I'm sure there's some serial killer stuff in there somewhere. But it's the momentum and accountability for me that really made it work.
Actually, ticking off stuff as you do it's great.
Yeah.
If you've just done it, writing it down, ticking it off, it still gives you that
that
same
right?
little buzz.
Okay, I was worried about that.
You're not completely insane. Well, not in relation to that anyway.
No.
And many other things.
Yeah, but momentum and accountability are two key features.
Keeping your momentum through. Yeah. How quick were you at responding to the prospects' questions?
Very quick, but not too quick.
And what let you be quick?
What let me be quick? I was in lockdown, and my day was organised in such a way that I always built in free time in my day. So I might have 4 appointments, but I have buffers on them so that I could respond not just to the acquiring firm, but also to clients, etc. So being very, very structured in my days. So, for instance, when clients call, and that was still the case right up until the sale, they couldn't call me direct. No one had my direct line. I've got a few clients on Facebook Friends, but no one had my direct line. They always had to go through someone else, not just to give a sense of unavailability, but because I think if they could just call me and get hold of me immediately, I'm not that busy. And so that meant then that if someone needed to get in contact with me, they'd have to book their time in with me, because their time is important and my time is really important too. So having that structure enabled me to do that good stuff.
So running through the whole process, then we've got this element of preparation on numbers and awareness of business, and really looking at any hiccups or strangeness within those numbers, and having that explanation already in place, having those future forecasts and demonstrating the continued growth by keeping the momentum in the business, by actually structuring the team and making sure the team got the resource and the capability, and keeping your own resilience and mindsets in place, being structured with your rules around the side of it, then also making sure that at the heart of it, your core customers would be addressed and looked after. So that's kind of the steps, and keeping the momentum the whole way through. What about communication?
Communication with the staff and the clients is different to the communication with the buyers and the sellers. But sorry, with the buyers. The communication with the buyers was done promptly. We jumped on phone calls, Zooms, whatever we needed to. And Prospective, who bought Jones Hill, were very good at adapting to that very quickly. And they hadn't really used, like many people, video conferencing before. I've been using it for 2 years because I've been in Italy. So it was nothing new to me, but they adapted very, very quickly. And we're really pleased to do that. Now, the communication with clients and staff was a little bit different. And the first people to know would be the staff, assuming that it went through. And the second people to know, but equally the most important, were the clients. So what you and I discussed, we went through and put through and spent a lot of time on doing, was ensuring that when it came time to let the staff know, that we had thought about what was important to them, and we'd structured it. So, because if I were them, I would start feeling really anxious. Am I going to lose my job? Are they going to halve my wages? Am I going to have to work in Birmingham, or what's going to happen? So we went through all of those different aspects and created a, well, I might call it a script, but basically key points to talk about. And this is really important because one of the members of staff accidentally came across Jones Hill for sale on Business Broker's website prior to exchange. Now, we had, Perspective hadn't done this before, but I was really keen to do an exchange and a completion so that I knew that I could tell staff pre-completion. So we had time to, breathe, if you like. And I knew that if I told them, then the chances of us completing was very, very high. Now, they found, one of the members of staff found out just before exchange, which is not in the plan. So it was in the plan, but it was not hoped for. And so I said, yeah, okay, well, this is what's happening. And I simply brought up the bullet points that you and I put together and went through them. And then I said, right, what do you think we should do with the rest of the staff? They said, well, not tell them or tell them later. I said, no, you know, so they have to know. They have to know everything. So an hour later, we had a WhatsApp meeting and went through those key bullet points with them. And then they then had meetings with Perspective very shortly thereafter. And they had that initial anxiousness that we would expect, but then that developed into, oh, this is a good opportunity. Yeah, this could be really good. And I think if we hadn't spent time, you and I, going through that and looking at my first draft, then that would have caused more anxiousness, I think, but quite upsetting.
We did a good critique on your first draft.
Yes. And that was really, really key. And one of the main reasons that you and I work together is that it gives me an objective input without having any, I wouldn't call it financial gain. Because you're not part of the business, you can say what you like, and then I can take that and I can do what I like with that information. Now, the clients, as far as the clients are concerned, this was absolutely critical that we got this right. And so we went through quite a few iterations of what we could do with clients to make them feel comfortable, letting them know that we've done the very best job for them. We're going to put them with this great new firm. And so again, we went through a script. I don't know how many iterations we went through, but it was a lot. And we decided that because clients are used to dealing with us online, that we would produce a video and send that out to clients. Again, Perspective have never done this, but that's because we've never been in lockdown before. So they were very happy for this, to see this. So we did a video and we accompanied that with questions and answers for clients, because they would say, well, what happens to my new advisor? What about my fees? Where am I going to meet? What about my, what happens with all of this? So we preempted all the sort of questions that they would ask, and then completed them on a Q&A sheet, which they got on Friday, last Friday, 5:30 p.m. after completion. They had an email come out from me, linked to a video with the Q&A. 80% open rate on that. We had the stats through Monday morning, which was brilliant. And at the same time on the Friday, Perspective sent a letter out to them, which they have their own letter, we did our letter, and which went in the same envelope. My letter basically was pretty much a repeat of what was said in the video. And those two letters went out together. So on the Friday, 5:30 p.m. video, Saturday morning, probably for most people, letter on the post. So very slick, very smooth. And Monday, I forget what date it is, Tuesday. So yesterday, they then started calling out to say, right, we need to come and see you. So very structured in dealing with it in a way that clients are used to and familiar. They see me, which they all love to do, and they then had a structure in place which was kind of familiar to them and set out the next steps very, very clearly.
And you're sure they really love to see you. No. So, and the team have obviously known for now quite some time.
6 weeks, yeah.
And during that time, have any of them continued to raise concerns, or have they built excitement? Have any of them left? Or
So none have left, which is great. Two of we've got 4. So one's a self-employed mortgage advisor. Then we have 3 guys in the office, 2 of whom are qualified. And Rob became a fully qualified financial advisor on the day we completed. So we've taken these guys from scratch and built them up so they're fully qualified. We've done that over the last 2 or 3 years. So notwithstanding, they have had their anxious times thinking, what next, or what's going to happen with this conversation, and what's going to happen with that. And so that's been the key part that I've been involved in with the new firm to say this is what their expectations were, what they've been used to. This is where you are, which may be different. How do we smooth that? Now, there is the slight added complication or benefit of 2P. So these guys are 2P across. So in some ways, it's academic. What you had is what you get. But there's going to be new opportunities there. So it's been just constantly with the team, just saying, okay, how are you feeling? You've had a conversation with a meeting with them. So for instance, the business sale happened on Friday. I'm out of the business. Monday, 6 a.m., I send a work WhatsApp saying, congratulations, guys. Today is the start of your new career. Let me know how you get on. And then close of business Monday. How did you get on? And there will be some ups and downs, but they need to know that I still care. That their being there is important to me. And then, because I've always known that if I look after the staff, they'll look after the clients. That makes sense.
yeah, definitely. Well, we have the cycle of business, which is very much a case of the team actually looking after the clients. If the clients are looked after, they look after the business, and that looks after you by return.
Yeah.
But if you don't look after the team, then it never starts.
It falls apart.
So fantastic. And as we move towards the end, what would be your 5 tips for anyone who's looking? 5, not just 1. 5 tips for anyone looking to structure their business over the next couple of years to actually get to that point of having a viable, decent offer that represents the value and effort that you've put into your business, that you've had to work on, because actually there have been numerous steps to get there.
Yeah.
What would be the 5 tips that you give anybody?
5, okay. So you might have to keep count on.
You're
from fruit, so it might be just 6.
I'm not from Free. I've got all my fingers, all 8 of them.
So know your numbers, all your data, in detail, in absolute detail, off the top of your head.
Numbers.
Number 2, look at what acquirers, people looking to buy your sort of business, look at what they're looking for. If they're looking for a client bank that is at least 100, number of 100, who have an average value of 300,000 or whatever it might be, and yours is not that, then you can't expect to sell to that sort of acquirer. So you need to build to sell if that's what you want, if your business isn't there already. And that's what we did. We went from 60,000 retained income to 400,000 in the best part of 3 years. So build to sell. Number 3 is keep momentum going. Number 4 is you need to have accountability. And number 5 is try and be as objective as you can, separate yourself from it, that it might be your baby, so to speak, but other people don't look at it like that. They just look at it like it's a business that can help my business. So emotionally detach yourself from the fact it's your business, and it's now going to be something which you can then, it's just a football, you can go and hand it to someone else and they can create something more from it.
Brilliant. And what's the future hold for you?
I'll have lunch today, nice relaxed lunch somewhere. Maybe
you had a weekend now.
We went to London, didn't we? So the next 2 or 3 months are me working with the team perspective to make sure that transition is as smooth as possible. Making sure that clients can talk to me in a non-advisory capacity. I'm very happy just to talk to them about how this next piece happens. And that's really important for them. It's also important for me because we have deferred consideration over 2 years. So it's important to me that they stick around as well. And then after that's finished, then I'm looking for new business opportunities and also hoping to start a doctorate in the new year as well.
Excellent. And well, I suppose in terms of this, you've probably had a few of these, but congratulations.
Thank you very much indeed.
It's been absolutely brilliant.
Great.
Brilliant working with you.
I think I'll open this now.
On this business. Yeah, I see no reason why not. It's been absolutely brilliant helping you through this.
Great, thank you.
And I'm looking forward to the next challenges because I think there are already a few underway.
There are a few on the way, and I would say as well, it would not have been, I don't think we would have done nearly as well as we did without your input at all. That made a huge difference, not just to the overall where the business went, but to communications with staff, communication with clients, and all the people looking on the outside said, that's really good. So that's down to you for helping us along with it.
Brilliant. I like to help.
Thank
Excellent.
you.
Brian, thank you so much for giving some ideas and thought patterns and actually letting people see, I suppose, what it feels like to go through that journey.
Yeah.
And finally, how chuffed are you?
I'm pleased. I'm really, really pleased. It's been a journey and a half, and there's been a team behind it. Peer group, friends who've also been behind the scenes, who've known about it and just checked in on me from time to time, said, "How's it going?" And it's had its ups and downs, and sometimes it felt like a little bit like when you go hiking in the mountains and you think, that's the end, and it's just a false summit, and you need that resilience just to go, okay, I'm prepared to have a whole bunch of new false summits because there is a summit there somewhere.
Yeah.
It just needs to be the right one.
Excellent. Well done.
Thank you very so much.
And next week we've got Nick Hems, who's going to be talking about first impressions and that side of it. And that's going to be really exciting. And a quick question or final question coming in from Matthew Rich. How did you go from 60k to 400k in 3 years?
So we structured the business in terms of the way we work for our retained income. We focused a lot on initial income, and I realized that was of no interest at all to buyers. So we very much focused on taking on clients who were going to stay with us for at least a year or 2 or 3 or more. And we turned away ad hoc business completely, just said, people just want bits and pieces done. Sorry, it's not for us. And also it meant that we focused on clients who had a certain, could afford a certain level of fees as well. And again, we're not talking about thousands of clients. We only had 150 client households by the time we completed.
Excellent. So I hope that answers the question there. Assuming no further questions directly coming in here, we're going to say we look forward to seeing you next week. A massive congratulations again to Brian, and we look forward to hearing about your adventures as time moves forward.
Thanks a lot, Pete.
Beyond that, goodbye. Everyone have a brilliant week.